going. This is the final segment of the Botany Beginners series, and my name is Paige Shafer, and today I will be talking about continuing your botanical journey. I just wanted to reintroduce myself again. You saw me in the very beginning of this course, but my name is Paige Shafer. I'm originally from Eddyville, Iowa. I'm an AmeriCorps member here at the Tallgrass Prairie Center. I'm one of the main creators of this course, and I was so excited to have you all join us today. I primarily at the center, I help out with the roadside program as well as this course and other things that the TPC needs. And I just love going out and exploring plants. I have an interest in like herbaceous plant research. So I love going out and exploring forests, young prairies, just seeing all the herbaceous plants out there. And if you have a question at any time, just type it in the Q&A and I will hopefully get to that at some point during this session. So first off, I need to acknowledge all the wonderful partners that I am working with to make this course possible. First and foremost, the Tallgrass Prairie Center, our partners at the Practical Farmers of Iowa, Green Iowa AmeriCorps, and the University of Northern Iowa. Without their help and support, we would not be able to have this course. And some other acknowledgements that I just need to pass on because this is the very end of this course. First off, I want to thank the Tallgrass Prairie Center staff. Truly, when this was an idea in my head a long time ago, they really bought in and have been great to work with. All of the staff gave so much of their time and effort providing, I think, really engaging presentations for you all to listen to. So without their expertise and their help and their knowledge, this wouldn't have been possible. Secondly, the UNI IT staff for helping us with the recordings, homeworks, quizzes, all of that jazz. We really appreciate their help and support as well. The Practical Farmers of Iowa for providing some resources in the terms of field guides, as well as helping us later down the road when we do those virtual field tours. And lastly, all of you. I know when we first started this journey, I expected there maybe to be 50 people that joined, but now there's over 500 of us that constantly are engaging either on YouTube or on the Facebook page. And so I'm so grateful for all of your interest and your grace during this process. As you know, this was a course that was created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I really appreciate you being patient and working with us as we tried to provide the best possible course for all of you. So some course announcements. As I said before, the July 1st webinar has not been posted. We had a little IT mishap where the live webinar was not recorded. Thankfully, Justin and Laura Walter were able to re-record that for us, and so I will be posting that shortly. For that reason, I have not yet posted homework 3 and quiz 2, just because all the other people weren't able to watch live with us. They weren't able to then complete that homework, so I didn't want to cause anybody any stress. I know I've gotten a lot of questions about where's quiz 2, where's the homework? I haven't forgotten about it. It will be posted as soon as the webinar is available for everyone else to watch. Also, this is the last webinar in the series. We've really enjoyed having you along with us, but as of this point, we will only have virtual field tours, which I will talk to you more about later. There will be a post survey that will be available once this recording is posted, just asking for your feedback and how, if we do continue this course or continue something like it in the next coming years, how can we make that better and what topics you're interested in learning about. So we would really appreciate and want your feedback, your honest feedback. Just know that this is our first time doing it as well. And as always, I've seen a lot of great connections happening already on the Facebook group, but if you have questions about management, whether that be prairie management, how to seed something, the Tallgrass Prairie Center has a resource section on our website. Please check that out and then email us your questions regarding management of your personal prairies. So recap, why are you taking this course? Hopefully you know that by now, and hopefully you're able to say that some of these things you can do. This class hopefully has helped you learn names of plants that are important to you. We've covered a wide range of plants. Hopefully you're able to now ID some plants in your neighborhood that you weren't able to before. We hope that you're able to use botany language and field guides. We've covered extensively Newcomb's field guide and introduced you to some other field guides out there that are able to be a resource to you. We hope that you are able to also appreciate Iowa's natural areas. I love seeing everyone's posts on Facebook of them going out and exploring remnants, roadsides, prairie reconstructions, or even woodlands and other natural areas in Iowa. I love seeing you guys going out and exploring because right now, even though it's a little hot, it's definitely like the prairies are very active and things are blooming. And lastly, we hope that you've connected with botanists across the state, which from what I could see is totally happening on our Facebook group. You're able to talk amongst each other why you think the identifications that you've come to are why you ID'd them. You're able to ask questions about botany terminology, field guides, plant IDs, where you can find remnant prairies. And I love seeing that on the Facebook page. So as you know, this is the 6th recorded webinar. We will be covering plants of the day again in this webinar. Hopefully at the end of this course, you are able to share your student plant list, and the plant list is just a list of all the plants that you've come across throughout this course that you're able to ID now that you haven't previously been able to ID. We have been using Newcomb's Wildflower Guide. Homework and quizzes are optional, and another thing to note is all of those are open and they will remain open for the entirety till the end of the growing season, I would say. So if you want to take another quiz again, if you want to do the homework again, you totally can do that still. I would recommend doing that. And all the answer keys and the quizzes are self-grading, so you should have all the resources you need to complete that on your own. If you haven't found the Facebook group yet, that's a great place to interact with all of your other classmates taking this course. And my biggest announcement on this page is for virtual field days. So we've been mentioning these throughout the whole class, and we're able to provide you some information on that now. So within the last couple weeks of July, depending on weather, we will be able to virtually explore a prairie reconstruction, a roadside planting, a prairie strip, and then a working pasture area. All of those with the partnership of PFI, we will be exploring those virtually, and you will receive an email invitation to those. If you have any questions, concerns, just post in the Facebook group, but just due to weather, we aren't able to exactly pin down the dates yet for those virtual field events, but as soon as we know, you will know. So through this journey, we started out with me kicking it off, doing an introduction to botany beginners. We went over botany terminology. Laura Jackson taught us how to use Newcomb's guide. Laura Walter gave us some tips to becoming an expert botanist. Justin and Christine Nemec were able to teach us about CRP, what that means, and how roadside plants are in Iowa and how to ID some of those. And then last week, Laura Walter and Justin went over remnant prairie plants, how to ID them, and how to tell if a remnant is truly a remnant. And now I'm going to hopefully give you some resources to continuing your botanical journey. As I said, we covered plant terms, we covered how to use a guide, we've covered some basic plant families. I would note that we haven't covered all the plant families. That could be a whole nother lecture series, so there's more out there for you to explore. We covered ID strategies for plants with or without flowers, how to age and how to use seed mixes for ID, and then lastly, we covered remnant prairie plant ID. So today's learning goals, I want to provide some insights to you on how to continually grow your plant identification skills after this course has ended, and we'll learn a couple more plants. So what tools can you use, or what tools have you used so far? We've used field guides. So we've mentioned several field guides, but we've primarily used Newcomb's Wildflower Guide. A resource that I would recommend to you all to check out is a book called Botany in a Day. It's a great basic resource. It groups plants by plant family. You're able to learn more about those. Websites, so let's say you can't find the plant in Newcomb's Wildflower Guide, Laura Walter taught you how to use Minnesota Wildflower Guide, USDA Plant Finder. There's a lot of online resources for you to plug in those botany terminology skills that you were able to hopefully pick up and differentiate between plants and plug them in. Next, we have our context clues. We talked a lot about where plants are located, when they're blooming, that sort of thing. So that way you're able to differentiate between something that could be found in a woodland habitat versus a prairie remnant versus an aquatic system even. So you're able to use those clues now and say, I know this stuff. Seed mixes are a great resource. They're, like Justin said, they're a blueprint for your planting. So first off, check your list of your seed mixes to make sure if what you're growing is what you planted. And I'm going to be covering more in-depth phone apps or phone applications on how they can help you in your plant ID process. So I've gotten a lot of questions about this directly, asking if I use iNaturalist, if we at the TPC use iNaturalist. The answer is yes, I use iNaturalist. There's some pros and cons to it though. First off, it's a free application, so that's a pro, but it isn't always accurate and your picture matters. So I want you to think back way to the beginning of this talk when I taught you how to properly photograph a plant. That is going to become really, really important if you choose to use iNaturalist or any app that's similar to iNaturalist. If you take a blurry photo or only focus on one aspect of the plant, your ID could be very, very wrong just because the camera isn't seeing what you're seeing in real life. So for me, I use it just kind of as a fun tool. I don't use it if I'm going to go do a botanical survey or if it's like I'm monitoring plants or anything like that. But if I'm like walking around on a trail and I see a cool flower, I take a picture of it and then sometimes I plug it into iNaturalist. So my tool or saying is when in doubt, use your field guide if you feel unsure about the ID that iNaturalist gave you. So iNaturalist, like I said, is a phone app. And for me, what it does is it captures the plant in a photo and then it looks for identifying features that you could use that the camera uses to tell you which plant it's in, or even sometimes it just tells you what plant family it's in. A cool thing about iNaturalist is it's a way to participate in citizen science. As you can see on this right-hand side, this is actually a screenshot from my phone, and this is the Tallgrass Prairie Center. So all these green arrows are plants that have been ID'd and then have received a confirmation ID from someone else in the iNaturalist community confirming that that is actually what we think it is. On the left-hand side is a screenshot of all the observations that I've done since I had the app back in I think 2019. So as you can see on the first row, iNaturalist ID'd purple prairie clover from the University of Northern Iowa. And so when I click on that, I'm able to see one, where I found that plant, and two, the confirmation ID of some other botanist in the area confirming that it is indeed purple prairie clover. So that brings us to our first plant of the day, and we're actually going to walk through this process using iNaturalist instead of our typical Newcomb's Field Guide method. So here are the two pictures that I submitted to iNaturalist. As you can see, I would say this picture on the right-hand side isn't enough to submit. This could maybe get me to a plant family. Since I was able to zoom in on the floral arrangement, as well as you can kind of see there's some hairy leaves pictured here. That way I'm able to help iNaturalist get a better ID. So this is what I took the picture of. And so first off, it gave me a plant family. As you can see, it's in the Stachy's family, or the hedge nettles, which is a type of mint, actually. It's one of the largest plant families ever, so I was like, oh crap, that didn't help me much. But as you can see, I found this plant actually on a roadside in Dickinson County when I was up there delivering a seed order for work. I was able to explore some of the roadsides, so that's the location of it. And then I was able to get confirmation. I ID'd it myself, and then I had another confirming botanist ID it for me. And so we have Stakes pilosa or hedge nettle. Some noteworthy characteristics of this is it has a square stem, which is really prominent of the mint family. The leaves are opposite, they're toothed, and the leaves are slightly hairy. So this is a unique plant to find in a roadside. Typically they're found in wetter areas, which kind of makes sense if you think of a roadside. Sometimes they have standing water, but this isn't a plant that we necessarily seed for. So it was a cool find when I was out exploring the roadsides near Okoboji. So another component of iNaturalist, or an offshoot or a secondary app of iNaturalist, is an app called Seek. This one isn't as common, but I really enjoy it, and I know my sisters do who are younger. This is more of like a challenge app where you can take photos of plants, insects, mammals, fish, what have you, and they're able to use iNaturalist software to ID it. As I said, it's more of a challenge. You can compete with each other. So for example, I went on to Seek this month, and the challenge for July was to find 2 plants in the aster-ish family, or find 3 birds that are perching birds, or find 1 beetle. So this is more of a comprehensive, if you're really just kind of beginning in nature, I would recommend this app, or even for small children. I've used it as in camps before, just making sure kids are out there exploring. You're able to download it on an iPad. And the fun thing about this is I love competing against my sisters and beating people in challenges. So it's a really fun game that you can play either amongst family members or even just amongst strangers that you don't know. So yeah, that's the difference between Seek and iNaturalist. They're both through the iNaturalist software. I got a lot of questions about Seek. So if you have any more questions, I'll answer those at the end, but we will continue on our botanical journey here. So our last plant of the day is prairie rose, or rose statira. In the 3-digit code of Newcombs, it is 554. Newcombs actually keys it out as a shrub, where sometimes I've seen in field guides that it can be a vine. Once again, it's kind of a debatable thing depending on the field guide. But Newcombs does a great job of troubleshooting for you. How I get 554 is the 5 parts of the flower, and then it is a shrub. And as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, this is a leaflet, and so it is considered divided. So, and another thing, this is, I believe, the state flower. So oftentimes you'll find these in prairies, or I sometimes see them in open areas or along roadsides. They're really kind of everywhere, not really in wooded areas so much, but yeah. So prairie rose is our last plant of the day and of the series, which is kind of sad. Lastly, I want you all to stay connected with us the best you can. So one way of doing that is becoming a friend of the Tallgrass Prairie Center. The link is provided. Another way of doing that is to follow the Tallgrass Prairie Center and Iowa Roadside Management on Facebook and Instagram, so you're able to see what events we have going on, what we're up to during these crazy times, and continue to post on the Botany Beginners Facebook page. We will keep that up, I think, as long as the growing season happens. So let us know what you're up to. Be sure to share your plant list. Reminder, I will get the recordings posted, and you'll hear more from us about the virtual field tours through that platform as well. So keep posting. We love interacting with you on there. Lastly, I'm so sad to see you all go. I hope we continue to stay in touch, like I said. But being a botanist now means that you're committed to learning forever. We just barely dipped our toe into botany through this course. There's a lot more out there to go out and explore and see. So I hope you know now, congratulations, everyone's considered who has taken this course is considered a botanist, but that doesn't mean you get to stop learning now. So hopefully you're able to continue to ID plants, to learn more about plant terminology, plant families. We just barely covered prairies even. There's way more to learn about prairies than what we've covered. But I hope you continue to explore, and I hope this class has been a positive experience for you. And I hope to see more selfies like this one of me cheesing it up in a roadside with prairie, with pale purple coneflowers, and just seeing you guys out exploring. I believe I'm a little early, but that gives us time for some questions. If you guys have any burning questions, I will answer those at this point. Really? Okay.
So the first one is, how does H. nettle differ from Germandel? Germandel.
So the first question was, how does H. nettle differ from, I don't know the plant. I can't see the question, so I'm not quite sure. I would say, I'm not quite sure what you're, yeah, Eric, I'm not sure. I don't know off the top of my head how it is different. It would be good to look at that in either on the USDA plant guide or Minnesota Wildflower to see how they differ. Off the top of my head, it was a long 4th of July weekend, so I don't know. So the second question is there any UNI online botany or wildflower courses? As of right now, I don't believe there are any free, for sure, botany or wildflower courses. Even if there are, I don't think they're open to the general public. I do believe you have to be a UNI student to participate in those classes. But there's definitely other courses out there that people are offering. I'm not always sure if they're free. We try to share with you as much as possible the opportunities that arise. Any other questions?
So Anne asks, what's a good way to learn about collecting seeds and then starting them?
Okay, the question was, is there a good way to learn about collecting seeds and starting them? So Anne, I would point you to the Tallgrass Prairie Resource Guide. We have specific pamphlets that go over how to do seed collection. I'm guessing it's a prairie, I could be wrong. But there are specific pamphlets that we've created for how to collect seed and how to use that seed then in a planting. So I would check out that resources tab on the Tallgrass Prairie Center website.
Kathy Jantz says, I successfully used Newcombs to identify a trumpet creeper vine at edge of a woodlot bordering a prairie. Should I be concerned or just leave it?
For management questions, so Kathy, you have a question about IDing a trumpet creeper vine at the edge of your woodlot. Should you be concerned or just leave it? Once again, I am not an expert botanist by any means. I think that's a good question probably for one of my colleagues. We will get back to you on that, Kathy. Thank you for your question.
Steph asks, how do you manage destructive insects like Japanese beetles in your plantings?
Okay, we had the question of how I manage Japanese beetles in our plantings, and that is a great question. I would direct you to Laura Walter, our plant materials coordinator. I know daily she's out there knocking beetles off when they're in their feeding clusters and such. Once again, I would refer you to the TPC resource guide. There's a portion in there dealing with management. Or I would email Laura Walter. She's our plant materials coordinator and deals with pests on the daily. Thankfully, in my job at the TPC, I do not have to deal with Japanese beetles, which is lovely that I don't have to deal with them.
Kathy Rose asks, my road ditch had a light pink flower my family called Bouncing Betty. Any other info about this plant?
Kathy had a question about a plant with a common name called Bouncing Betty. So this takes us back to our first presentation talking about common names and how they can differ regionally. I don't know of anything named Bouncing Betty. I've never heard of that. But I'm also not from Northern Iowa, or I don't know where you're from either, Kathy. So that might be a regional plant that you would know. If you were to tell me the scientific name, maybe I could help you out, but that would be a good question for the Facebook group and seeing if anyone else had information on that, or maybe even a quick Google search to see what Bouncing Betty translates into a plant.
Sarah asks, wild parsnip is so prevalent in Iowa ditches and make me hesitant to explore roadsides. Why has it increased within the last few years? What can be done about it?
So we had a question regarding wild parsnip, and they've noticed it extensively in their roadsides, and it's gotten worse over the last 2 years. So I would say wild parsnip is a noxious weed. Roadside managers are managing for it. They do spray for it. As for why it is worse these last couple years, I can't give you a 100% answer. I know studies have been shown that wild parsnip is increasing in populations and becoming more and more prevalent. I would honestly talk to your roadside manager in your county, just saying, hey, I have this roadside ditch and it has a lot of parsnip in it. What can be done? So that's a good conversation to start. I can't tell you why it's more prevalent. There's a lot of factors that deal with the increasing in populations in regards to wild parsnip. Could be climate, could be the amount of disturbance in that roadside. It's really a multitude of things. Yeah, it is a pesky weed, but hopefully if I would open up that communication line with your roadside manager. If you don't have a roadside manager, I would talk to your weed commissioner within your county and tell them about it.
The next question comes from Kate, and she asks about thistles. Are only non-native ones outlawed, or am I supposed to get rid of all of them on my property?
So we have a question regarding thistles, if you're supposed to get rid of all of them, how you're supposed to manage them, etc. So there are native thistles, and thistles do provide some wildlife value for birds, insects, what have you. You are required to manage the non-native ones just because they do tend to take over areas. There is a native thistle though, so I would do some research before you get rid of all the thistles in your area. But yes, I would start removing the non-native ones as soon as possible.
A lot of our botany beginners have been on Newcombs, and they have said that Bouncing Betty is soapwort.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Here's one from Kate. How does the Tallgrass Prairie Center predict that climate change will affect plant populations and prairie ecosystems?
Ooh. So we have a question about how the TPC or the Tallgrass Prairie Center will predict that climate change will impact plant populations within, I'm guessing, prairie ecosystems. So that's a very loaded question. We do have, the science has shown models of how plants are kind of expected to shift and how they will be successful. But right now the jury's out. There's a lot of data, like we're trying to collect as much data as we can for how even within like the last 5 years, I know there's studies being done on how populations are doing, as well as where are they existing and why are they existing in those areas. But I would say we don't know. We don't know how the climate's going to impact prairie plants. As you know, hopefully if you watch Justin and Laura Walters talk, you know that true prairie remnants are very, very, very hard to find. And they are also very, very fragmented, which means there's not a lot of travel room for those plants by any means. So there is a definite concern when it comes to prairie populations and our changing climate and how much Iowa has changed since European settlement. But I don't have a good answer in terms of where the prairie plants are going to go or what prairies are going to look like even in 10 to 20 years from now. right, if there's not any more questions, I think we're going to sign off for the day. Look at that, perfect on the dot, 6:30. I don't think I've ever done that before. I really appreciate all of you that have tuned in live today. Thank you so much for all your questions and your patience during this course. I hope this course was beneficial for you and your plant journey. And I hope you stay connected with us. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.